Oh, wait. Yep. Okay. I have to have it over my right heart, not my Gallifreyan heart. Oh, screw it. This is more appropriate. I pledge allegiance to the dumbassedness of the idiocracy that is becoming America, and to the retardedness for which that stands. One nation, in mass ignorance, with liberty and justice for none, except those who think exactly like I do. I feel dirty. Need a shower. But that's what y'all are saying right now. That's what the dumb Americans are saying right now. I'm ashamed to be an American right now with that shit going on. Because we have all these rights and liberties, and at the top of their little dumb lungs, the American public is standing up and saying, "Take away my rights! Take away my rights! I don't want them! Take away my rights!" Of course, they don't see it that way. You know, it's, no, leave my rights alone, but take away that guy's rights over there. Yeah, the one over there behind the corner, under the tree, behind the bush. Yeah, that big, rich, evil boogeyman over there that we can't really see and doesn't really exist. Yeah, he shouldn't have any rights. Or she, let's be politically correct, you know. But no. We need to take away their rights. Let's ignore the fact that it's the exact same rights that I have. No. We're not talking about my rights. We're talking about the rights to let them do that. Ignore the fact that they're my rights. No, that doesn't matter. Does that make any sense to anyone else? It doesn't make any sense to me. What I'm talking about is this recent gang up on Judge Roberts. You know, it's really funny. Both the left and the right are doing it. What we have in the Supreme Court right now is 9 Chief Justices. This is, supposed to be the case. What we have is 4 Chief Justices that, for the most part, are going to align themselves with the left and vote off the left deep end and say, fuck the Constitution, fuck the law, fuck the core, fuck whether this is legal. It fits the philosophy of liberalism and progressivism. Oh, and a Democrat sponsored it. Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, well, it's liberalism and it's progressivism. So we'll forgive the fact that it's co-sponsored, or maybe a Republican sponsored it. But it's definitely liberalism and progressivism. So fuck if it's been done constitutionally or not. It's the right idea. Let's do it. Then you got 4 justices that, for the most part, want it the other way. The right! It's conservative! It upholds what I know to be conservatism. It does this, it does that. Yeah, I'm going to vote in favor of that. Oh, yeah, it's Christian. It's on. Yeah. Then you have poor Justice Roberts. Poor John Roberts. The reality is, for the most part, he's been ruling constitutionally. He's a little naive in that he thinks we are actually Americans, and that we think, and that we reason. His rulings express that he actually believes we are Americans, that we believe in the Constitution of the United States, freedom and liberty and justice for all, and things like this. Dumbass! We don't believe in none of this stuff in this country anymore, do we? No. Freedom of speech is defined by an American as long as you're going to say everything I'm going to say, you have freedom of speech. That's just not the law of the United States. But as defined by an American today, that is definitely the definition of freedom of speech. It's sad, isn't it? It's just sad. You don't believe that somebody who doesn't think exactly like you has the right to say what's on their mind. And if they go organize themselves collectively into a union or a non-profit or a political party or political action group, well, then they definitely shouldn't get to say what they believe if it's not exactly what you would say. Because that's really what this whole Citizens United and campaign fund boils down to, and the stink about it. Citizens United case was a ruling about a non-profit wanting to show a political movie near an election cycle about, wait for it, Hillary Clinton. The contributions and the activism and participation in the political process since that ruling has resulted in unions and special interest groups having more representation and participation in the political process, political ads, and getting their message directly through to the voter than has happened in decades preceding, just in the last few short years. And now, what is everybody saying? Well, we've got another ruling. We said, well, you know what? You're allowed to contribute to whatever groups or political parties you want, but we're going to be sane and put limits in, and leave the limits in place. It's like you can't give $1 trillion to candidate X to make sure they can outspend candidate Y all by yourself. No. You can give to the party, but you can't give to that candidate. They're like, we left that in place. So reality is, despite all the rhetoric about, shoving unlimited portions of money directly into the mouth of the political candidates, I love the Onion. They're funny as hell, but I think that one was a little repugnant. But it was funny as hell, if you realize it's satire and have a sense of humor about it. The problem is the non-thinking American people are taking these jokes and or headlines which claim this to be true verbatim, and they're not sitting down and going and reading the Supreme Court ruling. It's on the Supreme Court site. Hell, I'll put a link to it in the description of the video. Go read it. Go read what they said. Fundamentally, what they said, point blank, was as long as we have the ability for the redress of the governments for grievances, press, and so on, basically it is not the government's job to dictate how you, a private citizen, spend your money. And therefore, any such limits outside of bribes and rigging an election is not the government's domain. It's not. Now, if you go try and rig an election with your money, we're going to throw your ass under the jail. Or, you know what, given the way America's going right now, you probably won't get a trial. We probably won't throw your ass under the jail. This lynch mob will take you out back and hang you by the nice hanging tree. Because we all know you're guilty as hell, and we don't need a jury of your peers to prove it. A little scary there. I'd rather you go through the courts and we know you're guilty before we throw you under the jail. These things are important. That's the thing Americans are largely missing today. If you do not like the Citizens United ruling, get a group of people together, draft an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to remove 3/4 of the First Amendment, namely speech, press, and redressing the government for grievances. You can leave freedom of religion alone and get everything you want. What you're going to do is remove this right and liberty from the United States of America. Then you're going to restore it in a limited way by creating a list of, this is the approved free speech, this is the approved press, and this is the approved things you're allowed to talk to the government about and say they might have done wrong. Because until you do that, these rulings are constitutional. So, if you oppose these rulings, then that is what you support. Pick. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I support free speech, but that guy needs to shut up. I support a free press, but I don't want to consider this organization press. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Now, there have been some recent things like the seizure at Gizmodo and other things. Or some, I bet the same people who object to the Citizens United ruling are appalled that Gizmodo was raided and seized over the iPhones a few years ago. That are appalled that certain non-traditional media doesn't always receive the same rights and liberties under the law as press protections that, say, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and, those big evil rich corporations do. Forgetting the fact that College Humor, Gizmodo, all of these places are corporations too. And that pre-Citizens United ruling, College Humor would not have legally been allowed to make and publish, that Gangnam Style parody making fun of Mitt Romney. Hey, Mitt Romney style. That would have been illegal. It would have been illegal for them to do. Google would have been fined for it. They would have been fined for it. Both corporations would have been in jeopardy because that went up on YouTube. That would have been illegal. These are things to think about, people. Do you want that to be illegal? Or do you want it to be carte blanche open and everybody can participate? You have to choose. To be fair. So, while it's acting like the floodgates have been completely and totally opened, the reality is there's limits on individual candidate contributions. Okay? Not on political party contributions. You can give as much as you want to the Democrats or the Republicans or, wait for it, the Libertarians, the Green Party, the everything else. So everybody who wants to argue this is about keeping it fair, with all due respect, as long as you have caps on how much an individual can give to a political party or movement, you are making sure we are locked forever in a two-party system. Ultimately, lifting this cap may bring an end to the two-party system if enough well-off people throw the full of their weight and contributions to the political process to an ideological third party. Something nobody's thinking about. Oh yeah, we set the floodgates loose. The Republicans and Democrats are united in their hate of this because, oh shit, we may lose control. The Democrats would lose it first, but the Republicans wouldn't be far behind because neither one of them really represents the American people right now on the whole. In addition, the other form, they said, was buying an election. Wait, everybody's saying, this lets the rich buy the elections. Actually, the ruling specifically states that buying election is not allowed. So, if you are allowed to advertise out the wazoo, okay, and you, the people, are allowed to think. Drink poison. Drink poison. Poison, the refresher. I just gotta get me some of that then there poison. Poison, 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 poison. Now with poison. Poison! Anybody feel compelled to go drink some poison? Eat some poison? Expose themselves to some poison? Snuggle with some poison? How's that poison ad working, people? There's a whole mess of studies that show point blank the only people these political ads shift is the middle and the undecided. Far right's going to be far right no matter how many liberal ads you show them, and the far left's going to be far left no matter how many conservative ads you show them. The mudslinging and the conveying of ideas and topics and ideology, and I'm going to use the term information, not facts, helps sway the middle. The more thinking the middle is, the more rational, the more educated, the less the advertising can sway. It's ironic, but what the people who are afraid of this Iran are guilty of themselves. And no wonder they're so afraid of it, because they're not capable of thinking for themselves. They saw a headline that says the rich can buy elections now. and they're seeing all the headlines like that, and they're like, we have to stop the rich from buying the elections. That's the headline. They didn't read the story. They didn't read the Supreme Court ruling. They didn't read the laws of the United States. They didn't read what the cases were about. They didn't do any of this shit. They let a headline dictate to them what the shape of reality is. These are the same people you go up to them and you say, blah blah is responsible for blah blah. All of a sudden, that's their reality. The sky is purple. I thought it was blue, but thanks for letting me know. I have a question. Do you think it really matters how much money is spent, how many ads are shown for these people? Really? Do you think it matters at all? Do you? Because point blank, whatever somebody tells them, they're going to think. Because they don't think for themselves. Is the core problem that we have money in politics, or that these people aren't thinking? Another statistic you want to think about in this is the other argument on this is that, well, the rich think different than the average person. That's very true. That's 100% emphatically true. The richest 1% of Americans are 180 from the average American on several key political issues. That is not a fact that's in debate. There are three main reasons for this. First, I'm going to quote some very true statistics. 99% plus of the richest 1% of Americans vote. More than half of them participate actively in the political process and campaigns. They decide who represents their interests and their ideology, and then they get behind them and they participate in the process. Contrarily, these are the statistics for the average across the whole of America. A third to half of Americans don't vote. Less than 1% of the evil rich don't vote. A third to half of the population doesn't vote. Three-fourths of the American people in no way, shape, or form participate in the political process at all. They don't vote in primaries. They don't campaign. They don't get to know their candidates. They don't avail themselves of the fact that they have access to our political process in this country. Contrarily, it varies from half to 75%, but it's half to a third of the percent of the mass that don't, and the rich do. So most of the rich participate. Now for the ideologies, for the most part, the average American, on the whole, a good chunk, actually think that money can come from nowhere. So people who don't have an abundance of money think the problem is everybody else. Society as a whole, if the Democrats would change and the Republicans would change and the United States would change and my company that didn't hire me would change and everybody else would change, I'd be rich. If I got all the luck, I'd be rich. I'm not trying to say people are lazy. I'm just saying that they've put this huge roadblock in front of them. They think everybody else is out to get them, and they have no power themselves. Contrarily, that's almost 180 for the well-offs. Now, the really funny thing is, I would argue most of the people who aren't well-offs are future well-offs who don't put those roadblocks in front of them. A good deal of the people I know who are well-off were not always well-off, but they're well-off now because they didn't put those roadblocks in front of them. I'm not trying to have a philosophical debate with y'all, but you'll need to think about this. What is the difference? Might these people be rich because they think differently than the average person? Just saying. You know, do they think differently because they're rich, or are they rich because they think differently? That's a debate and question worth having. Do they think differently about the role of government because they actually participate in government and pay attention to what government's doing and vote and deal with government regularly? Or because they're rich? A study I would very much like to see, and I'm not sure how you'd go about doing it, would be comparing only voting people, only like people. Let's compare the average Americans who vote, participate in the political process, and so on, with the rich who participate in the political process, vote, and so on. Let's compare like to like. I wonder how many of those people think alike, regardless of whether they're liberal or conservative. They're going to disagree on certain mechanics of certain things. That's just part of being liberal and conservative. But is there really this great despair? Right now, the country is angry. We're in a depression and we're looking for a boogeyman. Go get that boogeyman. That boogeyman over there. That boogeyman did it. Yeah, it's all their fault. Go get him. It's over there behind the bush. Didn't you see the boogeyman? It's very depressing. My advice to everybody, stop bitching that other people are using their rights and liberties and start using them yourself. Nobody is stopping you from making a political action group. Nobody is stopping you from funding it with a super PAC and taking donations. Nobody is stopping you from pounding the pavement, raising money to raise political ads. Not a damn person is stopping you. Instead of complain that this right exists, avail yourself of it. Instead of complain, oh, let the out-of-state money come. You know what? Instead of complaining about out-of-state money influencing elections, why don't you take a look at, I don't know, the Senate and the House and go through the thing. Go through the thing. Just go through it and go, why is that senator voting to suppress homosexuals? They don't belong in there. Why is this congressman doing this? Why is this one hurting these people? Why is that? And create a nonprofit whose whole mission statement is to identify these people who should not be serving, who do not represent the American people, and making sure to do everything in that organization's power to make sure these people don't get reelected the next election cycle. Because the reality is, with the floodgates open and the Citizens United ruling, you, the people, the person, has the right to do that. You have the right to get the American people together and clean out Congress! Why do you want to lose this right? Peace out, all.